For our interview through chat, first we have Daphne Asong, which is a first year college student. For the first question, do you think that people should use social media in exercising their freedom of speech? So Daphne answered, addressing this topic is a good one, but I might say that this is also a tough one to answer. Well, in my opinion, it is a good to express what you feel and extend what you want to share. What's wrong is that we overuse social media to the point that we become toxic. There are some things that is need to share public, publicly, but there are also some things that is need to be kept. Both negative and positive outlook will come to result, but what important is that we express to be free, to lessen the heavy feeling or to gain confidence. But the matter of fact is that we can't please everyone, neither yourself. You can't please by everyone too. Overall, we can have our freedom of speech, but in moderation. So for the question number 2, what should be the limits of freedom of speech in social media? So the answer is post what is good to post and do not post those intended to be kept. So for the question number 3, should we hold people accountable for misuse or abuse of social media in exercising their freedom of speech? Why or why not? So Daphne answered, I don't think so. They have their freedom, they have their will, their post, their obligation, and we are out of it. What comes out may comes back to them. Live your life and just let other people do what they want to do. We don't have the right to hold people accountable as long as they didn't do bad thing on you personally. Next we have is Arlene Sinodevela, which is a first year college student. For the first question, do you think that people should use social media in exercising their freedom of speech? So Arlene answered, in my perspective, we are now living in a new generation called Gen Z. If I'm not mistaken, people or young people now are freely using social media as a way to express their emotions, and it's good because all people now are using social media as source of news, and expressing your emotions through social media is never been an illegal as long as you express your feelings or emotion in social media in a good way or a right manner. And yes, I extremely favor to the thought that people should use social media in exercising their freedom to speech, but in a good way. For the question 2, what should be the limits of freedom of speech in social media? So Arlene answered, I think that the limit should apply people whom using social media is the words and the behavior that can affect to the people emotions from reading the speech. And for the third question, should we hold people accountable for misuse or abuse of social media in exercising their freedom of speech? Why or why not? Arlene answered, I think the government should put some action on that issue about social media being misused because lots of people or teenagers are now experiencing anxiety that can lead to suicidal. That's all for Arlene's interview. Next we have is Joshua Querida, which is also a first year college student. For the first question, do you think that people should use social media in exercising their freedom of speech? Joshua answered, social media is useful in expressing our freedom to speak. I see that social media plays an important role to that. But we need to understand that social media has negative side, that any information can manipulated, destroy, and falsified. That's why we need to control and limit the use of social media for freedom of speech. For the question number 2, what should be the limits of freedom of speech in social media? Joshua answered, I think that the limit of freedom of speech in social media is that we should not go beyond what is right and what is wrong, rather what is true. So for the last question, Should we hold people accountable for misuse or abuse of social media in exercising their freedom of speech? Why or why not? Joshua answered, yes, any misuse or abuse of social media should be accountable to its user. Abuse should not be tolerated but accepted as a crime. That's all for Joshua's interview. Lastly, we have Richard Licera for the interview. For the first question, do you think that people should use social media in exercising their freedom of speech? Richard answered, every individual have different ways to speak or voice their views, opinions, thoughts, etc. Some of us, we used to talk by our friends or other people close in our heart, but there are some used to express themselves through social media platform. For me, nothing wrong by expressing things or even a freedom to speech in social media as long as you know what are the proper etiquette in that space. So for the question number 2, what should be the limits of freedom of speech in social media? So Richard answered, it must be appropriate for all. Avoid spreading negative activities in actions and verbal. So for the last question, should we hold people accountable for misuse or abuse of social media and exercising? Why or why not? So Richard answered, yes, but how? There are trillions or more people using social media platforms, and 40% of it was used in wrong ways. That is why even how we really want to make internet as the safe place, but we never stop to avoid use of wrong ways. Always remember that the safe place are not based on the place because there is no safe place, but a positive mind brings a safe aspects. That's all for Richard's interview. And that's the end of my interview video. Thank you for watching.